Today we're going to be talking about transcoding for editing in Adobe Premiere Pro, but we're probably not going to be jumping into Premiere Pro. I want to keep this really short because then we can open it for discussion. There's no such thing, and I've never met an Adobe expert. Who here has met an Adobe expert? Okay, none of us are Adobe experts. So we're always learning, I'm always learning, so I'd like to hear from you guys too. I'm gonna wait for questions until the end because who knows, I might answer your question during this whole thing. So let's get started. So, why aren't you transcoding your footage after it comes off the camera and gets into your studio? Why aren't you doing it? Most of you probably thinks it takes too much time. You wanna get to editing, you got this deadline you gotta meet. Takes up too much space on your hard drive. You know, who can afford a $20,000 SAN? Well, not everybody. And Adobe says that any codec will work. And I want to be clear here right now. I am not going to defend Adobe, ever, okay? I'm going to be your marriage counselor with Adobe. I'm not on anybody's side. Now, Adobe is like your teenager. Just will go out and you're like, why didn't you come home last night? Well, I went out. Really? Where? I went out. Little did you know your teenager was out getting drunk, running over mailboxes, stealing road signs. Who knows? So Adobe is kind of half-truthful with you. They're not going to tell you the whole truth. They say that you can import any footage you want. Yes, you can. Thank you, Adobe. They say you can mix codecs and frame rates on the timeline. Yes, you can. Thank you, Adobe. And can the average system handle this kind of workflow? Probably not. So you should transcode. It's just a good idea because all your sources of footage will match, from your GoPro to your DSLR to your Red to your Sony. All the sources will match. And your hardware will work in harmony with your software. From your laptop to your big desktop Z840 HP, your hardware will just work much better with Premiere. And your final output, when you're sending that thing off, it'll render out a lot more stable. And you think you're saving time by not transcoding? You're wrong. How often have you guys just spent hours on forums looking for the solution to a problem that you're having with your timeline after you're already halfway through, 3/4 of the way through your project? Anybody? Nobody? None of you have problems with Adobe. That's why you're here. All right. Okay. There are different codecs for different jobs. And you need to know the difference, because they're designed for specific jobs in mind. You got your capture codec. That's the one that comes off your camera. Usually it's compressed. Usually it's made specifically for recording to. It's your recording capture codec. Now those, I have edited with those codecs and it worked just fine. And I know a lot of you have too. There's nothing wrong with that. But those codecs are usually not made for editing on your NLE. So you've got your edit intermediary codec. And that's the one we're going to be talking about today. And then finally, after you're done editing, after you're doing all your magic and your wizardry and sorcery, it goes to delivery. And it's out in the world. So you got your 3 stages of codecs. Now the majority of the codecs that you render out to, when you look at all the codecs, there's a lot of them. Most of those are your delivery codecs, not your intermediary codecs that you edit with. But what should you transcode? Highly compressed footage should be transcoded. Your H.264s, anything off a DSLR, anything off a GoPro. Those are highly compressed footage, and it's always really, really good to transcode those to an editable codec. Raw footage should definitely be transcoded. So you debayer that stuff, and then you send it off and transcode it to a footage that you can edit with. That'll speed up your system. I mean, you can use these codecs on your timeline. It'll play back. But over time, that's going to take its toll on your edit machine. It's going to start slowing down. You're going to start seeing issues with your timeline. Right off the bat, you're playing it back and it looks great. And then all of a sudden, oh, now I'm running into issues. Now I've got to go. Now it's too late to go back. And some high-end cameras say they'll record in NLE-friendly formats, like DNxHR and ProRes. And usually, yeah, you can probably edit off of those, but I would still pick a format that works for you, a codec, and stick with that on your edit timeline. And there are many, many codecs. Like I said, they've got, most of these codecs are for your final output. Most of these codecs are not friendly with your Adobe timeline. And I'm going to tell you a few of my favorites here. Now, you might have a favorite, and you might be going, yeah, Conrad, you know what? That doesn't work for me. I don't like that codec. I invented my own codec, and it's amazing. You don't know what you're talking about. But Apple's ProRes is one of my favorite codecs. And I'm sure it's a lot of you guys' favorite, right? Who here edits on a Mac? Holy cow, see? You're already editing in ProRes, I'm sure, right? So ProRes is a great codec. The only problem is on a PC, which I've got here, you can't create an Apple ProRes. So that kind of causes an issue, but you can still edit with the Apple ProRes codec on a Windows computer. Another one of my favorites is Avid's DNxHR with an MXF container. I love this codec. This is by Avid, and it's backwards compatible with DNxHD. HR is their newer codec. Now, the only issue with this codec that I can see is you have so many options. Look at all these. So you got to pick out which one is going to work for you, and I'll tell you what, I could sit here all day and this could be its own session, but we're not going to do that. So, yeah, it keeps going. But that is, that's an MXF container codec. And then, oh, wrong button. All right. And then, Avid's DNxHR, you can also put it in an MOV container. Now this is a more simplified, you don't have to do a lot of research. So you just go up in here. Can you guys see this okay? Yeah. Okay. Go to Quicktime. It doesn't matter what you put in the preset here, but if you go down to the video tab, select here, you can go up to the DNxHR codec from Avid here. Now, this codec does not come with Premiere or Adobe yet. You have to actually go to Avid's website and you have to download this codec. Now, there are several different codecs on there that come from different years. There's one from December 11th. That's the one you want because the other ones just have DNxHD and they haven't taken those down. They just leave them up there so you can be confused with your internet searches because that's Avid. Sorry, Avid lovers. I don't pick sides. So after you go to Avid, DNxHR codec, then you go to your codec settings, and this is where it becomes the difference between going to a buffet and going to Five Guys for a burger. You go up here, pick your codec, boom. Oh, this is nice. So you got your low bandwidth, standard quality, your 8-bit, your 10-bit, and your DNxHR 444, which is your heavy duty, really, that's the codec, you know, for, I don't know what you would use that codec for. Probably if you got a VFX heavy movie with lot of keying work. But usually I go with this guy. Because that's, you know, 10-bit color, good for color grades. And that's just simplified. Now if you look down here, wait a minute, I shot this in 4K. What's going on? Oh, okay, I'll just match the source. Boom. All right. So I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just gonna hit OK on that. Oh, wow. This is wonderful. I'm turning you all into Windows fans right now. That was my my goal. All right. Oh, my password's password in case you all were. We'll just go up here, make it a little easier. We'll go in the full screen. There we go. Okay. And then my other favorite codec to use is GoPro's Cineform. So we're slowly going down the list here. Complicated, a little less complicated, not complicated at all. Now you're going, GoPro Cineform, is that what comes off of their drone cameras or those little cameras you wear on your head when you're skiing? No, GoPro's actually got its own editing codec called Cineform. And this, I mean, I go through forums and I keep track of, you know, what everyone's saying, and a lot of people are going this direction. They love GoPro's Cineform. Personally, I really like it too. I like how easily it plays back on the timeline. It comes with Adobe Premiere right off the bat. You don't have to download anything unless you're on a Windows computer and you have to download Quicktime. But I really like Cineform. GoPro came up with a great codec with this one. They should be proud. And that's just right under here. And you've got 3 choices with GoPro Cineform. You've got your YUV with 10-bit, RGB with 12-bit alpha. I'm gonna just do this. And then the maximum bit depth. But pretty much anything you're gonna be doing, you can use this one. Bless you. So, those are some of my favorite codecs for editing with. There's 3. It's simplified. I know they work. I've used them. All these other codecs, I would just use those for your output. So, let's go back here. Okay, now we're gonna go and transcode a file. This is the fun part. This is the part I've been looking forward to all day. Since I woke up this morning, drove an hour to work, and thought about all you guys. All I've been wanting to do today is transcode some footage. I'm lying. So we've got our settings here. All right, so let's start right in here. How did I get this footage here? Where did that even come from? Nice thing is, either on Windows or on a Mac, whether you're in Finder or Explorer, it works the same. So you're all majority Mac users, and I won't hold that against any of you. No, I like Macs. I think they're awesome. all you have to do is drag and drop. Boom. Holy cow, how'd that work? And the last settings that I had here, it automatically picks up those settings. Yeah, Media Encoder's pretty smart. So we got this interface. Now, you don't even have to go in depth here. You could just go right under here, click under there and pick out your codec. And then after you pick out your codec, let's choose DNxHR. You can go under here and make your other choice. Now, and right after that, you can go in here and choose where you're going to render it to. Now, the default rendering, where it defaults to, is always the folder where the original file was. So always check that. Because I'm not sure if you want to sit here and throw all your video files in one place. You probably want an external drive, like this big old G-Tech thing right here. You probably want to unload them on there, because after a while, these transcoded video files are going to take up a lot of space. For now, I'm just going to leave that alone. All right. Now I could just sit here and I could hit play, and it'll transcode to what I just chose. But me, I don't know about you, I like more choices. I want to be able to control things a little more. So I want to go in and click on that. It's like a link, and go right inside here, and I'll be able to see. Can you guys see this okay? Let's just do this. So you'll be able to go up to the top left corner, and you can see your source footage. This is what it looks like right from your capture to your output. And then the next choice you got here is you can scale it to fit, or you can scale it to fill. Now, if you're using a different resolution that doesn't fit with this aspect ratio, this is where this choice would come in. Now, do you want black bars, or do you want the video to fill the entire amount of space that you have? This one, I wouldn't recommend that. I'm sure you've seen the ads in newspapers where the whoever they have doing the ads, who isn't obviously a professional, stretches the photo so it fits just perfect inside there, and all of a sudden the mayor is this tall, skinny, alien-looking dude. But yeah, don't ever use this one, please, just for the sake of everyone has to view your stuff. So I usually use scale to fit. Then we come right over here. And this is where you choose your format, also known as your container, your wrapper. And there are many. But I like my MXFs, and I like my Quicktime files. So those are the ones I usually choose. Now, you guys are probably going to go on forums and check stuff out and think, you're going to find the perfect one for you. Now, there's no perfect workflow. It's just how you get to that end that matters. So what I may be doing might not work for you. You might have a better idea, and I would love to hear it personally. So I like learning. And then you choose your preset. And if you notice in this preset for your codec, where's DNxHR? It's not here. This is odd. That's because these are your presets. And Adobe doesn't put a ton of presets in here. They're like, hey, you're all grown-ups, you can make your own damn presets. So they just give you a small variety here. And I'm going to go with the 720p 24 for now. And it's scaled to fit, so of course I got my little black bars. Now I could scale this to fill. Now it's just going to fill this and just cut off the edges, which is okay. So this is in 720. Now I can scale it to fill. Oh, and it stretches it. So we made our actress a little skinnier, which I don't think she would mind. But yeah, scale to fit is always usually the one I go with. But I do not want to render this out in 720 in H.264, which is the codec that it automatically chose for me. So down here, of course, right here you can choose where you put your file. Right now it's putting it next to my original file. And then it'll tell you the output and the source information for your clips. That's pretty nice. And I want to definitely export the video and the audio from this clip. So it gives you even more choices. Now, there are 5 tabs here. The only one I'm going to go into today is the video tab, just to keep it short. And the first thing you'll see is the video codec. Now, H.264, no, I don't want to edit in that. I'm sure a lot of you have, I know I have, but not today. So I'm going to go with the DNxHR. And I don't want it at 720, I want it the original size, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to match the source. Boom, and not only does it do the size, but it also changes the frame rate, the field order, so you get progressive, square pixels for your aspect ratio. Now there are a few other settings here. And you can render at maximum depth. Now if you render at the maximum depth, and I recommend doing it just to see your files look nicer. You don't have to, it takes a little more time, beats up your system a little more, that's okay. But I like that extra color depth in my video, because especially if I'm using Lumetri on my timeline, which I have been, I rarely go out to speed grades. So, but who knows? You might be outputting this for DaVinci Resolve too. 24-bit usually will do just fine. You can go that extra bit of, go to 32-bit, but here's the thing. Think about what you're outputting that video for. Are you just gonna do a quick commercial that goes on YouTube? Or are you making a feature-length movie that's going up on an IMAX screen? This is where you decide, how long do I want to wait for this render? Do I want to have giant files? There's a lot of decisions you need to make here. Most of you will probably just be able to get away with using a DNxHR codec at 8-bit. So we go down here to advanced settings. Now you can do a little more studying on these if you want to, but pretty much you don't need to touch these. I never do. Optimize stills doesn't make any sense. So we'll go down to here to these settings. Now these have caused a little bit of controversy. This one especially, because is this the same thing as render at maximum depth? Use maximum render quality? Is that the same? No, it's not. This is more for if you're changing the size of your file. If you're going to stretch your file larger or make it smaller, but it's really not necessary, and it pretty much doubles your render time. That one really taxes your machine. I say leave this one unchecked. And then we go down to here to time interpolation. And there are 3 options: frame sampling, frame blending, and optical flow. Who has played with these? Anybody? All right. Stick with frame sampling. Optical flow is a new one. That's for if you're doing slow motion video. And it's really not Okay, you pretty much, you need a still image. Not a still image, but the shot should be locked down, and you need to have a really just a contrast between the background and the foreground. So optical flow right now, I just kind of leave that alone, unless you got ideal situations to use it. And then frame blending, who has tried frame blending and watched the video after playback? Anybody? Nobody? Yeah, what'd you think? Yeah, it gets all blurry and it mixes the frames. So frame sampling is your safest bet. And there we go. We are ready to transcode. Now you see this custom, you're like, oh man, you know what? I really, really love these settings. I kind of want to keep them. I've worked with enough settings and played with enough codecs to know that this is the codec that works the best on my timeline. So I want to save it instead of having to redo this every time I do it. So you can go right up here and you got a save preset and import preset. And the great thing about this is you can take your presets, put them on a little thumb drive and take them wherever you go. So if you're working at your studio and you want to go to another studio, you can put it on a stick drive and bring those codec settings with you. Now, hopefully they have the codecs loaded on their computer, but you can name it. So this is my DNxHR for editing. That's what I'm going to use this one for. And you can save your effects and your publish settings. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And now I can just choose this out of all these. I don't have to go through all that rigmarole that I just went through. Woo! All right. And we're going to render that. So while that's rendering out, we will I want to go back to my slideshow here. All right. Okay. Now, how many of you use watch folders for your encoding? Yes, awesome. I love watch folders. This takes away so much of that time consuming. I'm just going to I'm going to drag and drop into media encoder. I'm going to pick through and find the right settings. Well, there's an easier way to do that. Right in media encoder, which it's running out this 4K footage. But we can still go down to watch folders, which is the bottom right-hand corner here. I'm going to hit the tilde key, enlarge that. All right, so now I can do this one of two ways. I can drag and drop a watch folder here. Now you have to drag a folder in, or I can go up and hit the little add a folder key. And I have some folders set up on my G-Tech here, watch folders. Now I got two different folders here. I'm going to use the DNxHR one. And I'm going to select my folder. Now what it did was it created a drop folder or a watch folder. Now anything that I drop into that folder will turn into this H.264. But I don't really want to do that. I'd rather use my setting that I'd set up earlier for that. So pretty much you go through the exact same settings. And it bases it on the source, so whether it's 1080 footage, 720 footage, 4K footage, it's going to render it at the size of the source. Now you can change that down here. To any size that you want. If you actually want, let's say you've got a bunch of footage that you recorded for slow motion and you want to transcode that out to 23976, you can do that. I prefer you did that on in your project, but you can change that if you want to. And you can change your size if you want all of the files to be the exact same size. But for me, I'm just going to match the source for now. And that's it. That's pretty much it for setting up a watch folder. And now you got this folder. And you can keep adding these. Just keep adding as many of these folders as you want. We'll do a Cineform one. Just keep piling them on. So that is the watch folder. And that guy's right down here, so let's go ahead and we'll bring that up. There's my DNxHR, and here's some footage. And I'm gonna go ahead and drop a few files in there. Let's drop 8 in there. Oh, yeah, it's actually rendering that one right now. Okay. All right, so I dropped it in there. Now, it's not going to start rendering until this guy is done. And I can go ahead and we can pause that one. We'll delete it. All right. Oh, gotta stop it. Nope, I don't want to finish it. You're right. Thank you. And then remove it. All right. So this will be sitting here waiting. And eventually, Media Encoder will look inside my folder. We'll see my files. But let's not sit there and wait for that. Let's go back to my beautiful slideshow that I spent so much time on. All right, now there are new features coming in Adobe CC 2016. I went to NAB and I got to see all kinds of freaking cool stuff. You're gonna be able to do everything that I showed you how to do in Media Encoder inside your media browser right inside of Premiere. Right there. So you'll be able to go up here, there'll be a little gear here, and you'll be able to check, you'll be able to pick your codecs. And then when you choose to import it, it will transcode it automatically right inside Premiere. You got your presets that you could set up like I just showed you how to, and it'll just bring it right in, transcode it. And you can actually start working immediately off the original file, and then it will change it slowly as it renders, depending on the speed of your machine, to your transcoded file. That's a pretty cool feature, and obviously there are some bugs in it, and that's why we don't have it right now. So, but it's coming soon. Hopefully they get it all worked out. I know you all want that. All right. And then, I don't know, who works on PCs here? Anybody worked on a Windows machine? All right, the elite group out here. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. There is no Apple and PC debate here. They're all great. All right. So you've heard of the QuickTime on Windows thing? Who's heard about that? How many of you decided I'm taking QuickTime off of here before something bad happens to my computer because I go to websites that are very questionable? No? Okay. Anyway, nobody's going to admit that. All right. So QuickTime on Windows, they have been talking to Adobe. This is an actual release from Adobe on May 25th. They will be having native support of ProRes and DNxHR inside Adobe products. So you won't have to install QuickTime on your PC anymore. So there's that. Thank you, Adobe. Hurry the hell up.
That was importing and exporting, or just
ProRes, it's only importing. You still won't be able to export ProRes on a Windows computer. I know, right? We love lawyers. So, optional apps for transcoding. I know some of you probably got Handbrake, right? And all kinds of other transcoders that make your life super easy. You really, I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't need them anymore. Maybe 5 years ago, Media Encoder does all that. If you can find the codec, Media Encoder will do the work for you. And if you can load a file in a Media Encoder, you know that it's going to work in Premiere. You know that you're not going to be fighting with that file later. It's kind of that safety gate that you go through before you start editing. Instead of wondering if Handbrake, you got all the settings right. I used to use transcoding apps too, and I just went away from them. And if it works in Media Encoder, I'll use it. Now, some camera manufacturers provide their own transcoders because I don't want to name names right now, but or call people names, but yeah, they want your money. They want exclusive rights to their own codecs, so you need to use their transcoders to render out the footage so you can actually use it on a Premiere timeline. Now, you're wondering, what's the ideal hardware for Premiere Pro? Honestly, you can get Premiere to work on pretty much any machine. But these are my recommendations. You definitely want an Intel i5, i7, or Xeon processor. If you're working off an AMD processor, you're going to have a really, really difficult time working with any kind of 4K footage. Anybody worked on an AMD processor? I knew it. And you struggle with that 4K footage. You could get the nicest 8-core processor that AMD has, and it just will not keep up with an Intel processor. Now, memory is huge with NLEs, especially Premiere. Premiere eats this stuff up. They love memory. Now, on Adobe's website, they say, 8 gig, that's good enough. Really, you really want 16 gigs in your machine. This machine here has 64 gig, and it uses it. I'd like to go up to 128, but if you can max out your memory, do it. Your NLE will be happier, you'll be happier, it'll run faster. RAM is where it's all about with these things, so go with more RAM. And now these are Adobe's recommendations. They want you to have 3 discrete storage locations on your system. They want you to have an SSD for your operating system and your apps. And that's all that drive is for. That's all you put on it. You don't put anything else on it. You don't put your family photos on it. You don't put your games on it. This is just for your apps and the OS. You also want your dedicated cache-only drive. Now, you notice I got the sizes for these drives here. 256 is good enough for an OS and apps, especially for Adobe. Dedicated cache, you definitely want 512 or larger. Now, the dedicated cache is where you go into your Premiere settings and choose where all your cache and your temporary files go. You know what I'm talking about there? I could show you how to do it if you don't. Anybody? Okay. So that's a separate SSD. And yeah, oh, see, misspelling. I knew that would happen. All right, so next.
Could you do that?
What's that?
Could you show where you do those
Where I set up the cache? Yeah. Awesome, thanks for asking. Yes. Right here in Premiere. Let's zoom in. Now, it's, all right, for you Mac users, you will go up here and you'll see Adobe Premiere, and that's the file that you will click on is Adobe Premiere, but under Windows, it's under Edit, and you'll have the same preferences. This is what you're looking for. Either it's under Premiere, or in Mac, or it's under Edit on a PC, and you go into Preferences. All right. And then you go down to, where is it? Media. No, that's, yep, that's it. Okay. So it's under Media here, and you want to set these drive locations to your cache drive. Okay? So you just go right into Browse, and right now I am using my Adobe cache drive for that specific reason. And I made a folder just for it so I can actually find my cache if I need to. And it goes under Premiere. And your media cache database can go under there as well. You can choose 2 different drives. If you're really crazy and you just want different drives for everything, you can do that. But this will work, and it actually speeds up the system quite a bit. But that's where you do the settings for your cache drive. You'll thank me for this.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a minimum recommended amount for that cache?
Yes.
partition or drive?
Yes, there is. 512 gigabytes if you can. I recommend a 1 terabyte there, but my boss wouldn't let me get a 1 terabyte SSD. But yeah, 512 at least, if you can, because that'll fill up pretty quick. And then you don't have to sit there and delete all your cache constantly right in the middle of working on a project, especially larger projects. So the bigger your cache drive is, the bigger your project can be, and the faster it'll be. And then you want your separate asset storage. Now it's nice to have an SSD, but I don't know how many of you have a budget for a 6 terabyte SSD. No? Okay, I don't either. So it's nice to have an external drive like this guy. This is connected to Thunderbolt on this system, Thunderbolt 2. I didn't hear a gasp. All right. Yeah, I have a PC with Thunderbolt 2 on it, that's right. So if it's fast storage, that's great. You can install several drives in here too. You can go up to 8 terabytes, I think they have on spinning hard drives right now. But yeah, your asset storage, you would like that to be pretty fast. And I would go with 1 terabyte or larger for the drive that you work off of. Some smaller projects, it's not a bad idea to throw a 1 terabyte SSD in there and just throw your asset files on that and work off of that, but you're going to run out of space pretty quick, especially with larger projects. I'm still in zoom mode. There we go. All right, I'm going to move through this pretty quick now because I don't want you all going cross-eyed and falling asleep. I've got that Kevin Costner drone going here. All right, so the other thing you want for hardware is an Adobe certified graphics card. And I don't know how many of you guys have gone on Adobe's website and looked through their graphics card list and went, wow, these are from 5 years ago. It's way out of date, and they actually do support a lot of video cards that aren't on their list. And I would go through them, but I don't think you guys want to listen to a bunch of letters and numbers from me today. But you can go ahead and call us. I know what graphics cards will work with Adobe well, and which ones won't. If I don't know, I Google that. So, all right. Oh, what are all these crazy things? All right, so here's kind of the workflow. This is an ideal situation for like a large effects house Or you can dumb it down to work for your own personal situation. So what I usually like to do is, well, we capture it on the camera. Now that footage gets dropped onto your shared storage. Can you see my little mouse? There we go. So none of the files live on this, but anyway, you drop it on here. This is an old machine. This is your old machine that you no longer work with because you upgraded. I'm sorry. All right, so this is there's no reason to throw that old machine out because you could throw Adobe on this, you could throw a media encoder on this old machine, and that machine could take all the workload off your newer computers and sit there and just transcode all day. Maybe you got this one folder right here that transcodes to this one editable format, and then you can set up another machine that this one just transcodes another one. So you can put these old machines to use. There's no reason to just toss them out the window, even though most of the time you want to. So all your assets live here. They don't live on your computer. They don't live on this old machine. They live right in here. So you can access them quickly through your edit machines. So then all your edit machines are doing is you're editing. You can work. You're not fighting with stuff. It's all right there. So this concludes my talk. And everyone looks still awake. Now, here at Z Systems, we're here to help. We're also here to learn. We'll help you help yourself. So we can come up with custom workflows. Maybe you got a different kind of camera. Maybe you have a different kind of output that you want to do. Maybe you don't have Adobe Premiere, you have Avid that you'd prefer to work with, or Final Cut. We can help you with that because we got tons of people here who are we got a variety of employees here who just know pretty much everything. And if we don't know anything, we'll find somebody who does. And we also do install and integration, and we can set up your hardware like I did here. I built this machine, and it rocks. So I think it's on your little list or something, what's in it. It's water cooled. All right, and thank you for attending, guys. Thank you for listening to me. This is where, yeah, thank you.